This is a CBC podcast.
Well, you don't need a New Year's resolution to be active. In fact, our next guest says exercise could be the medicine we all need right now. Kelsey Kent is a physiotherapist in this province, and she's here with some advice. Good morning, Kelsey.
Good morning.
This is the time of year when many people try to be more active. Why do you think it's always important to keep our bodies moving?
Certainly now more than ever, activity is going to be more important to kind of keep regularly in our lifestyles. Exercise is such a powerful and underutilized form of medicine, and we all need to take advantage of it. A lot of people get overwhelmed or intimidated by, the thought of doing exercise or these, hardcore exercise videos. But a little bit of movement goes a long way, and really what we're trying to emphasize is to sit less and move more. So actually our guidelines for exercise have recently changed a little bit. So what we're encouraging everyone to do is to get about 30 minutes of physical activity 5 times a week, and that's for aerobic exercise like a walk or doing the stairs or going for a snowshoe. So just something to get your heart rate going a little bit. And the guidelines have changed in the sense that before we used to, encourage at least a 10-minute block, but now we're just trying to get cumulative minutes throughout the day. So, whether you get a little walk to the mailbox in the morning and then you do a little bit of marching in place later in the day, you just want to build those minutes. And then in terms of muscle strengthening, we're looking at 2 times a week. So sneaking in a little bit of chair squats or maybe some wall push-ups, so you don't need a lot of intense, intimidating exercise, but little bouts go a long way.
Now, for some people, heading to the gym is a great way to stay active, but it's not the only way. So what other suggestions do you have?
Yeah, so not all of us have maybe access to a gym or an interest to go to the gym, so we just have to get a little creative. The beauty of Newfoundland and Labrador is that we have, so much outdoor exercise that we can avail. So going for a little walk and using some hiking trails, I hate to say it, but shoveling is another way to get some exercise. We can do some snowshoeing, cross-country skiing, or downhill. So outside there's a lot of options for sure.
Even when it's cold outside?
Even when it's cold outside. So just, remember to wear some good layers, maybe have a little buff or balaclava for your, nose and mouth, wear some good shoes, and if some people need it, you can always take hiking poles. So it can be done. You just got to be prepared.
What are some basic things to help with exercising at home?
Yeah, so if you don't have a lot of equipment at home, you don't need to go out and buy a lot of things. If you just wanted something for a little bit of arm weight, you can always just take some water bottles and fill them up for a little bit of extra weight. Using a chair at the house, to help with squats. We have the walls. So you don't need a lot of equipment to get creative. And I think people will be surprised when they start looking online that you'll find examples of exercise that you can do with minimal equipment.
Now, Kelsey, a lot of people are isolating these days. We are back in level 4, of course. How can you get yourself out of that mindset to just sit and watch TV and actually get physical?
So think about planning it into your routine. If you're watching it, the news, at commercials, sneak in, going up and down the stairs a couple times or doing a couple calf raises, just plan it throughout the day. And then, people are working from home or they're studying at home, to just make that little routine during breaks to just get your body moving. So ideally, every 20 minutes of sitting, we should get up and move around for a couple of minutes. So, start slow and then build from there, but just don't be intimidated, but just sneak it in throughout the day is what I say.
Well, that sounds like a plan. Maybe I'll just head off now and sneak in some lunges or something.
Exactly.
Kelsey, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
That's Kelsey Kent, a physiotherapist in this province. Well, speaking of being active, local golfers were able to tee the summer off right this past season with the help of Happy Valley Goose Bay's local course. For our last segment of Year in Review, we take a look back at the 50th anniversary of the Amarik Golf and Sports Club. They celebrated with some big swings. Rodney Roberts is the president of the club, and I dropped by to learn some history of the place, along with a little golf lesson.
So have you actually ever swung a club?
Yeah, but not very successfully.
No. Well, I'm going to put a ball on a tee for you. So we're going to tee the ball up.
Yeah.
And you're going to shoot out that way because that's the theory, eh?
Now, it's a little windy, Rodney. Is that going to interfere with my skills?
No. What you do is you keep your eye on the ball. The grip is important. There's two grips. I'm going to show you. This is the interlocking grip. This is the grip that you use. And the thing with hitting the golf ball is you stand proper distance away in athletic position and keep your eye on the ball, and you swing the club back slowly and you follow through with the club.
Follow through.
Follow through out at your target. So you want, the ball is going to go out there, so you follow through out at your target with the club.
With any hope the ball is going to go out there?
Yes,
okay.
yes.
That's the plan.
Yeah, well, you try it. This is our 50th anniversary. It was started by Ernie Funston, and the golf course was started up on the base, and he decided that it was time to get their own golf course. He basically pioneered, got 100 people together, and they all paid $100. Back then, that was a lot of money. And then he started the golf course. It was a 3-hole golf course at first, and they worked tirelessly, with all the heavy equipment from the base and stuff. And a lot of the operators, they done a lot of work for free just to come down and clear away the fairways. And once that got done, in 1976, they finished off the other 6 holes and made it a 9-hole golf course. And at that time, Ernie Funston, who was one of the founding members, he went and died in a plane crash. After he passed away, they kind of named it the Funston Fairways, the first 3 holes.
Well, it sounds like, Rodney, that, it was started by 100 people who really wanted to golf in the community and come together. And it sounds like a lot of the business community is still helping you make sure that the Amaruq Golf Club is surviving.
Oh, yes. I tell you, the businesses around town is very important because they not only, they contribute, but they also sponsor a lot of the holes that's on the golf course. So when we start up in June, we already got investors investing into the club. We depend on that community and that business to start us off because without the business and the community, we wouldn't be where we're to today.
And how strong of a membership do you have right now?
Well, our membership is up to 210 this year. The previous years, our memberships, we found it was been down, but last year with the COVID, we had an exceptional year. But we were lucky to get back 210. So I must say that the membership is growing strong, and a big part of that, too, is our junior golf program. We developed a junior golf program, so that is certainly helping with the membership as well.
Well, maybe I should join the junior club and see what I can do. Let's. Can we practice yet again?
Yes, yeah.
All right. Okay,
So interlocking grip is your left hand that goes on first.
Yeah.
And then your pinky on your right interlocks with that one. And then you come down to there you go, like that.
So pinky underneath my forefinger on my other.
There you go. And then everything just falls right down.
Okay.
And then when you're swinging, this arm is to be kept straight.
Okay, so loosen up.
That's the tee there. I want you to try and hit that tee.
And so am I standing with my legs apart?
Yeah. That's like good athletic stance. When you come out low and slow, it's called.
Okay.
Low and slow, and then through. And then when you finish, you're through right out at your target and up and over like that.
Okay, up and over my shoulder with the club.
Yeah. Here you go. Perfect.
Okay.
My God, you're ready to hit the ball.
I'm ready to hit the ball?
So you step in.
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty good. Your arms are straight. Start off with the club here like this, right tight to that.
Tight to the ball?
Yeah, come out low and slow. Now where are your eyes going to be at all the time? Your eyes are going to be on that ball.
Okay. So I'm not watching the club?
No.
Just hitting it and hoping it goes out that way somewhere?
Yeah, now try it.
Okay. Club up.
There you go.
Excellent.
Look, right at the pin.
Rodney Roberts is the president of the Amaruq Golf and Sports Club in Happy Valley Goose Bay. And thanks again, Rodney, for giving me that little lesson. This past summer, the golf course turned 50 years old. Boil advisories are common in rural communities all over the province. So communities are increasingly adopting shared water sources called potable water dispensing units as a solution. But this kind of shared public system, with many different people physically accessing the source, alarmed users when the pandemic began. Well, a group of researchers have been looking into the impact of COVID-19 on drinking water security in communities. Kelly Vondon is an environmental studies professor at Memorial University's Grenville campus, and Deirdre Walsh is the director of advocacy and communications with Municipalities NL. Hello.
Hello. Good morning.
Thanks to both of you for joining us. Kelly, we'll start with you. Can you give us some background on why it is that so many communities in the province lack accessible to clean drinking water?
Sure. Well, there are a number of factors to consider, but certainly we have heard concerns about the cost of drinking water systems and both maintaining and replacing aging infrastructure, and also having trained drinking water operators. So it's a matter of expertise and cost often, as well as circumstances related to individual water sources as well.
And for anyone who isn't aware, Kelly, what are potable water dispensing units exactly, and how do they work?
Well, they're small-scale water treatment systems located in a kiosk or shed-type building where citizens can go to collect their treated drinking water from a centralized location with various kinds of treatment. So often they've been adopted by communities that have challenges with their with other aspects of the drinking water system, including the distribution. And so if they're on boil water advisory and can't get clean, safe drinking water delivered to their households, this provides an option for those communities to provide a clean, safe drinking water source.
Any idea how many communities have adopted that potable water dispensing unit so far?
Yeah, we have 32 communities in the province and 33 units total, including 7 in Labrador.
Now, Deirdre, how did Municipalities NL get involved with this issue around the water dispensing units during the pandemic?
Sure. Well, 26 of those 32 communities are municipalities, and some of those Inuit community governments as well. So really, at the beginning of the pandemic, MNL undertook work with its members to do regional calls, to engage with them, to hear about their concerns, of course, because, it wasn't that long ago, but it was a long time ago. We were very uncertain. So in those initial calls where we engaged with our members, one of the things that came up right at the beginning was for those communities with the potable water dispensing units, what was the guidance for them? What were the sanitation guidance for that? Should they be worried about people gathering? So just some clear guidelines is what they were requiring because they wanted to do their utmost to ensure safety in communities and provide that safe leadership. So really it was, we need guidance, and MNL provided an opportunity to hear about those concerns, and then we brought those concerns forward to the provincial government and said, these communities need guidance on that. Subsequently, the provincial government did provide specific guidance for these units and for operating them during the early days of the pandemic.
Kelly, tell us about the study that these concerns prompted.
Well, we started out when the pandemic hit. We wondered as researchers, what can we do to contribute to the response? And we had worked previously with municipalities of Newfoundland and Labrador on several drinking water studies, including an overview of World Drinking Water Challenges in 2013-14. So we came together and developed a strategy for how to proceed, including partnering with Indigenous organizations, including Nunatsiavut government in Labrador, and then proceeded as a group to contact the 32 communities and conduct interviews with water operators and elected leaders about their experiences, both during COVID and before COVID, because we took this as an opportunity to really see how these potable water dispensing units were working for these communities. And then we also undertook, later after we had some interim results, we had, with the help of MNL, a Zoom meeting with communities to discuss the results as they came out. And then also during the municipalities Newfoundland and Labrador Symposium, we had a presentation to members as well, which was another opportunity to provide some interim results and get some feedback.
And what did you hear from those who participated in the study?
Well, we heard, first of all, overall, I would say that people communities that have these units are happy that they have them. Primarily, they're a backup, as I mentioned, to their other mainstream system, if you will. But there are certainly challenges. And during COVID, many of those challenges are exacerbated. Things like getting parts when a system is broken down, and particularly in rural and remote, in more remote communities. But also the guidelines, and certainly Deirdre can speak to more about this, and mentioned that at first communities were wondering how are they supposed to respond when you have a situation where people might be lining up or touching the equipment as they come to collect their water in this shared source. So at first it was uncertainty about what they were how they were supposed to operate the systems. Then there were the provincial guidelines, as Dieter mentioned, but still changing information coming out that communities were having a hard time keeping on top of, and then also additional costs as it became clear they needed to purchase more sanitizers, PPE, that kind of thing, or keep additional operators on to ensure that the cleaning was happening that needed to be happening at these units. So information costs were big things, and then also just availability of parts, and for one community even delays in getting a new unit installed. So those were some of the COVID-related challenges that we heard about, as well as some solutions. Though certainly we heard about communities adapting and responding and just continuing to operate their units overall.
Well, we really appreciate you both joining us to tell us a little bit more about this study and solutions that are needed. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks for having us.
Okay.
And that was Dieter Walsh, the Director of Advocacy and Communications with Municipalities NL, and Memorial University Professor Kelly Vanden. Now, they're both part of a research team looking into the impact of COVID-19 on drinking water security across the province. The unions representing healthcare workers are raising the alarm over the COVID-19 situation in the province. The province reached 4,000 cases. However, those numbers don't reflect people who were close contacts and have symptoms but aren't being tested, or people with mild or no symptoms not being tested. Sherry Hillier is the president of CUBI Newfoundland and Labrador. She represents 3,500 healthcare workers. Hillier spoke to CBC's Terry Roberts.
The situation right now is critical, and that's the only word I can describe it as critical. Our members are tired physically, mentally, and they were tired even before COVID hit. There's no secret that there's a shortage of healthcare workers, especially licensed practical nurses and personal care attendants in the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. So that was an added factor already before COVID hit. But COVID started, and our members are physically tired, mentally challenged, just dealing with the day-to-day situations of COVID, for sure.
So is there anything else, if there's such a critical situation, critical is your word, is there anything else that can be done to alleviate the situation?
I have no answers right now, other than probably take some managers that I know they're working in the scenes behind. The Assistant Deputy Minister of Health has reached out to us, and we have members that are in, say, school boards, in other public sector jobs that can help out in certain areas, like as in the swabbing clinics, as security, as runners for the swabbing clinics.
Okay. So what are you hearing from your members, though? You're talking to people, you're probably hearing from them. What are they saying to you?
They're just saying that they're tired, and, is there an end in sight? And they're asking us to, reach out to government on their behalf for more staff, which we're constantly doing. We're in contact with the health minister and assistant deputy minister, and we're crying out for more licensed practical nurses and more personal care attendants, just to keep the healthcare system running.
Right, and so, this is really, we're behind Ontario and Quebec when it comes to the curve. They're seeing a lot of hospitalizations there. Are you worried about where we might be in another week?
Absolutely. We're working daily. Actually, I can say daily. We're working hourly on what will happen if this becomes more critical. We're at a good standpoint right now with just 3 patients in the hospital. That's a bonus for us. And plus, government has redeployed other departments in surgeries and other clinics that are being closed due to the COVID virus, that they're being redeployed in other areas. So right now, that's a good thing for us, is helping out our long-term care facilities for sure. So let's hope that we can keep all these staff that are redeployed safe right now.
What do you think about what we're all going through right now?
Oh, what do I think? I just think that people are so tired of COVID, and people are saying that this Omicron variant is mild. There's nothing mild about the Omicron variant. Variant is nothing, because what's happening is that if every person contracts the Omicron variant, who's left to work in the workforce? So it's not so easily said, that is mild symptoms. Yes, mild symptoms, but mild symptoms in healthcare workers is devastating to the healthcare facilities.
That was Sherry Hillier, who is president of CUPE Newfoundland and Labrador. It's a similar sentiment by Yvette Coffey. Coffey is the president of the Registered Nurses Union Newfoundland and Labrador, and she too spoke with Terry Roberts.
Well, the situation as it stands right now with the Omicron variant is evolving daily. Things are getting worse with the increased numbers, because with the increased numbers of COVID-19 positive cases, we're also seeing an increased number of healthcare workers having to isolate. Therefore, they're not available in the workplace when we already have a critical nursing shortage prior to COVID-19.
So what's the situation? I mean, you represent over 6,000 almost 6,000 members, I think. What's the situation there when it comes to positive COVID tests, isolating, and that kind of thing?
So we met with the regional health authorities and the Department of Health last night for an update, because as you can understand, everyone's been working through Christmas as well. And we were told that there was upwards of between 800 to 1,000 healthcare workers, which includes all healthcare workers, frontline managers, HR reps even, who are isolating at home because they're either a contact of a positive case, or they've been a close contact, or they're symptomatic or positive. Our members are exhausted. I mean, they've been working on the front line now for 2 years. They're already trying to balance work life and home life, family, and this is adding extra stress onto the system, both physically and mentally. The physical stress that we're seeing now, we're hearing of registered nurses working 24-hour shifts. We're hearing that, along with the shortage of registered nurses, we're also hearing about the shortage of LPNs, PCAs, home support workers, other healthcare providers. Everyone that they can tap and ask are going into different places to help out with swabbing clinics, vaccination clinics. We have staff being deployed to units where we have a significant number of staff home isolating related to COVID-19.
Right, and are you hearing of, are people being redeployed? I mean, even to other jurisdictions maybe, being asked to go to other facilities, other communities? Is that happening?
That is happening, especially in Lab Grenfell. They are looking throughout the region to help with the shortage that they have right now. We even heard last night from the leadership of Lab Grenfell, managers are the ones out doing swabbing and vaccinations because there is nobody else to do it. They have nursing backgrounds, and even we saw Heather Brown, CEO of Lab Grenfell, out vaccinating. Western Health is also in a bit of a pickle over there with their swabbing, isolating, and vaccination, and they are redeploying staff. The biggest issue we have right now is protecting vulnerable populations. So long-term care is going to be in the news today. It was in the news yesterday. And we are having some cases pop up in long-term care, which is very concerning to us. Not just patients, but staff as well. And we're having to redeploy resources to fill the needs for the patients.
Okay. But in terms of, I've heard the nurses are being asked in Labrador West to travel to Central Labrador and Goose Bay to take on duties over there. Is that happening?
Yes, that is happening. We're asking, and if they don't get volunteers, they are mandating staff to go and help out. The issue there is we're in such a crunch with staffing, even in St. Anthony, say at Curtis Memorial, where they're doing 24-hour shifts and 20-hour shifts. It's hard to be able to take staff from one situation and put them in another situation because the need is dire in both. Well, within our collective agreement, they can do that, and we do have a good neighbour agreement with all the health sector unions, the RHAs and the department, which allows them under the good neighbour agreement to mandate staff to other places. We also have some language in our own collective agreement about that. Of course, that is all contingent on whether or not there's duty to accommodate in situations, childcare needs, which is another big issue that we're seeing now with the schools gone virtual. We have a lot of our age group who have small children who are doing virtual online. So our staff are working through those situations with our members.
So are your members facing disciplinary action in some cases because they can't make the move, they can't go to another region?
We have not heard of any disciplinary action. Okay. Most members are stepping up and volunteering to go elsewhere to help out and to do what they can in this situation.
What more needs to be done?
Well, as I said, we are already in a nursing shortage. pre-pandemic. So there needs to be more done around retention and recruitment of healthcare professionals in this province, and we're seeing it in all sectors. Also, what's being done right now is what's being done. Everybody is working to full capacity at all levels within the RHAs, our members, all healthcare workers on the front line, management and the Department of Health. Everyone is trying to get as many boosters in arms as possible, keep up with the swabbing. I do know even Lab Grenfell last night said that between December 25th and yesterday, they had done over 3,200 swabs. And that's a big feat for a small place like Goose Bay with the limited resources they have. So everybody is stepping up, doing what needs to be done in order to keep our patients safe and the public.
Yvette Coffey is the president of the Registered Nurses Union, Newfoundland and Labrador.
Good morning, it's Mina Campbell, curator of the Labrador Interpretation Centre. You're listening to Labrador Morning at 89.5 in Northwest River.
Some of Labrador's most vulnerable stay in long-term care at the Labrador Health Centre. Now, Labrador Grenfell Health is confirming positive COVID-19 cases at its Happy Valley Goose Bay facility. Antoinette Cabot is Vice President of Clinical Services at Labrador Grenfell Health. She's also VP responsible for long-term care. Antoinette joins us now on the line to give us some more details. Good morning.
Good morning, Janice.
So how many tests have you carried out and how many positive cases have you identified so far at the long-term care facility?
So early, Lab Grenfell Health monitors our data daily on our cases that's happening in the region, and we did a couple of things that were proactive early on. December 26, we immediately limited the movement of staff between long-term care and acute care. Like you said, we have a vulnerable population in long-term care. On December the 28th, we implemented visitor restrictions to essential visitors in long-term care, and we did that regionally. We did it to be proactive as a proactive measure. With regard to the long-term care facility in Happy Valley Goose Bay, late Tuesday night, January the 4th, we identified one positive case at that facility. So we mobilized our team immediately late that night, and an outbreak was declared by our regional medical officer at the long-term care facility in Happy Valley Goose Bay. We now have a total of 4 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in long-term care. And as part of some of the things we've done, and it's been a busy couple of days, but a busy couple of years, so part of our person and family-centered care, we've had open and transparent communication with our residents, our families, and our staff, but we still have a couple of families that we're working on reaching. We've put additional infection prevention and control measures in place as soon as the first case was identified. And like I said, we continue with limiting the movement of staff between acute care and long-term care. So you'll see now that all of our staff are wearing full PPE, so gloves, gowns, mask, face shield. And we're continuing to work with our staff and our residents and our families to ensure that our residents are safe and but all residents and staff continue to be screened daily and monitored for symptoms. All residents and staff were tested on January the 5th unless a resident refused. We've implemented enhanced cleaning protocols, and again, like I mentioned earlier, the full PPE. We continue to limit the crossover of staff from other units, but if crossover must happen, we've got extra precautions in place. We've completed additional training for our staff, infection and prevention and control, because we want to make sure that everything is top of mind when we're in this type of situation. We're diligently monitoring that all protocols are being followed and making changes when necessary. We've got daily meetings with our regional medical officer of health, our public health team, infection prevention control, long-term care leadership, staff health and support services, and we continue to follow the current visitor restrictions to allow essential visitors only. And these visitors are all screened when they arrive in the facility. I guess, Janice, we're taking the necessary measures to limit the spread further, and we will see our residents through once again so that they can get back to enjoying their normal routine. I'm going to talk a little tiny bit about our vaccination rates now. As you know, all staff in healthcare are required to be doubly vaccinated, and all the staff at the long-term care facility are. Although the booster isn't mandatory, we're strongly encouraging our staff to get the booster, and it's available to staff. And we've been offering a number of vaccine clinics for boosters for employees, and we'll continue to do that. We have most all of our residents in long-term care has had 3 doses. There's other than individuals who refuse the vaccine, and that's fine. That's their choice. All visitors into the long-term care facilities must show their Vax Pass. So when that was implemented provincially, we put that in place as well. And we have temporary visitor restrictions in place across the health region. Essential visitors must be vaccinated, and since this outbreak into this facility must come and wear full PPE. We do recognize this is a hard time for families and for residents, when they can't come and see their loved ones. So we've implemented, we've had implemented for a couple of years actually, our virtual and our window visits for residents. We're continuing to monitor for symptoms daily of all staff and residents, and testing and enhanced cleaning. And we encourage everybody to get the vaccine and to get the booster and to follow public health guidelines. So it's been a couple of busy days, Janice, but we're doing well.
Well, I appreciate that roundup there, Antoinette, but is there any idea how the virus came into the facility? I mean, you've mentioned all the proactive protocols that you've had in place, so how did it get in?
So these are early days, and investigation is still ongoing. Our medical officer of health is leading the investigation. We did have a couple staff members who tested positive prior to this when we saw a surge in numbers in the Happy Valley Goose Bay area. These were isolating at home and following public health guidelines. They were contacts of community members, so they were not in the building when this case was identified.
And those who have tested positive in the long-term care facility, how are they doing?
They're doing well. We monitor daily for symptoms. Our physicians are following up with them, and they have COVID. They have some symptoms, but they're doing well.
We know it's a tough time on healthcare workers, and they've been so wonderful to be out in these cold temperatures and doing swabs, and everyone must be exhausted. So when it comes to healthcare workers in your facility, are you worried that you won't have enough to keep things going?
So, it's been an impact on our staff for sure, and it's been a long 2 years, Janice. It's been tiring. Everybody's tired. I think we're all kind of done with COVID, really. We have a suite of mental health services available to support our staff through employee and family the Employee and Family Assistance Program, and we have our own resources. On January the 3rd, we announced publicly that all sites and facilities will realign resources to focus on some priority areas, and this was the COVID-19 pandemic response for sure, and to ensure we had some other essential services maintained, one of which was mental health services. So employees across the region will be focused or redeployed or displaced, whatever the terminology language you use, to support the priority areas, each other and the people we serve. So we've kind of been looking around our region, identifying the right skill set and deploying in an appropriate area to ensure we get the staff to care for our residents and for our population.
Well, as you mentioned, everyone is kind of tired of the situation. I can definitely feel their pain. And I want to say thank you for coming on and giving us an update into the facility. And hopefully all your residents will be safe.
So if I could, before I leave, though, I just want to encourage all the public, the best defense against COVID-19 is the vaccine. So please get your vaccine. Please get your booster. Please follow public health guidelines. And we want to take a minute to thank our staff, who's been working tirelessly, as you mentioned, throughout the pandemic. We also want to thank the support of the unions. They've been very supportive and working with us for the last couple of years, but also the holiday season. And we want to thank the public for doing their part to slow the spread, to protect themselves and our health system. And we want to thank for our patients. We've had some long testing lines, and vaccination demands sometimes are high. So thank you very much. And we remind everybody about our mental health supports that are available for the public and for all employees.
And thank you for coming on and giving us this update.
Thank you, Janice.
Antoinette Cabot is VP of Clinical Services with Labrador Grenfell Health. She's also the VP responsible for long-term care.
Labrador Grenfell Health Mental Health and Addictions Doorways Walk-in Counseling Service continues to be available through its region. Services are available in person. You can present to the nearest Mental Health and Addictions office or by telephone or video. Please call the nearest Mental Health and Addictions office to arrange a time. Thanks.
Well, how quickly things change in our pandemic world. Right now, there are more people in the province sick with COVID than total recoveries over the entire pandemic. It's astounding and frightening for many as cases continue to soar. However, Chief Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Janice Fitzgerald, says that case numbers may not be the best measure for COVID-19 spread. She spoke to St. John's Morning host Maggie Gillis.
So what is the plan for hospitals if we have a lot of healthcare workers that go off sick or isolating at the same time and we do get a surge in cases? How prepared is our hospital system to deal with that?
So, I mean, those conversations are not necessarily ones that I'm a part of, other than, giving our forecasting and things like that. But certainly, to my understanding, the hospitals are quite prepared. They've done this before to, prepare for increased cases, and they're doing the same as well. But as I said, it's going to take all of us doing our part to ensure that our health system capacity is maintained.
Case counts, we're looking at that now, but it's not really, the daily number is not really something that we can look at now to really get an idea of what we're dealing with. So what metrics are you using to measure the situation now?
So we are looking at, the number of people in hospital. We're looking at that not just here, but elsewhere, because we came to these numbers a little bit later than places elsewhere in the country. So we're looking at what's happening elsewhere as well. We also look at things like, our doubling time, and, so that's how quickly do our case counts double. And thankfully that has been increasing over the last several days. So, and our percent positivity of tests is also an important measure, although that can vary, with who's actually getting a test and that sort of thing. So all of these things can vary depending on the situation and who's getting testing and who isn't. And of course, we've had to make some adjustments in that over the last little while, but certainly looking at those severity indicators here and elsewhere.
Based on the information you do have, knowing not everyone can get tested or is getting tested, how many more cases do you think are likely out there that aren't included in these daily case counts?
That's difficult to say at this point. I believe there have been estimates that have been made, but I don't know that it would be really fair for me to say at this point, because we really haven't sat down to look at that based on our numbers.
Lockdown is something that people are questioning. We're in alert level 4. Some people are wondering why we didn't go to a more aggressive lockdown sooner. Would that have helped with Omicron, or is there any way to avoid these skyrocketing case numbers?
That's a good question. I mean, that's the question we always ask, isn't it? I mean, is it too much too soon, or not enough, not soon enough? And that's a difficult line to walk. But I think, we certainly acted, quickly in relation to our case count. So in relation to our outbreak, I think we put measures in more quickly because we learned from other jurisdictions, and I think we certainly use that information to inform our decisions. We were looking at, I think the initial lockdown that we had, we looked at where these cases were happening, and so we wanted to target those areas. And I think it certainly has made a difference. I think our case counts would have been much, much higher if we hadn't done what we did. So it's a balance, and I think we hit a good one. You don't want to lock people down, especially right before the holidays. So, but I think a certain amount of this is inevitable, obviously, because of the infectiousness of the virus, of this variant.
And what are your biggest concerns, with this particular outbreak and the Omicron variant?
I guess at this point, it's really just about what's going to happen with our health system capacity. That's a big concern. And right now, a lot of our infections are in younger people. And so as we see more infections potentially get into older people, that's a concern, because we know that age is a risk factor for more severe disease. And so really watching that, that's something we're watching very closely. Just really hoping to get more information about how infectious or how easily this is spread. What is the communicable period? What is the period of infectiousness that helps to inform us how we try to control this going forward? So those are all things that we're really watching out for. And I think our biggest concern right now is just ensuring that our health system is able to handle what comes to it and doing that at the least restrictive way we can. The next couple of weeks, I'm sure, will be very important in that regard.
What are you expecting? I mean, we only have a few seconds, but what are you expecting in the next couple of weeks?
Well, I mean, we're very hopeful that we'll start to see a crest and that, our case counts will start to come down and we'll be able to make some moves, away from some of these measures that we have. But I guess time will tell.
Dr. Janice Fitzgerald is the Chief Medical Officer of Health for our province. She was speaking there with the CBC's Maggie Gillis. Well, it's a new year, so we're mixing things up a bit here on Labrador Morning. We typically hang with both Waynes on Friday. Wayne Button, our book reviewer, and Wayne Walsh, our reviewer of TV and movies. We're still hanging with them both in 2022, but one per week is starting today. And to kick off another year of reviews, we have Wayne Button on the line. Good morning, Wayne.
Good morning, Janice. Happy New Year to you.
Same to you. Did you read a lot of books over the Christmas holidays?
I did. I read a few. But before we start, I do want to ask you, do you have any New Year's resolutions?
No, I typically don't make them because I fail at my New Year's resolutions, so I decide not to set myself up for failure.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. So I don't have any New Year's resolutions either, but the reason I'm doing this book today is because I really feel it's important that readers at least once a year do a self-help type of book. And this is a little bit different. I mean, there's tons of self-help books out there, but as you know, I want to bring something unique to the audience. So Letters to a Young Poet is actually published all the way back in 1929. The fact that it's still getting published today kind of stands to how popular it is. But, people shouldn't worry. They can still pick it up at their local chapters or order it on Amazon or Indigo because it's extremely popular. And basically, it's a really short, quick book, but Rainer Maria Rilke is a very famous German poet. Now, I'll openly admit I never heard of him until this book, but apparently if people study literature, everybody knows who Rainer Maria Rilke is. And this is a book where a young poet is writing Rainer over the period of about 5 years in 1903 to 1908. And he's asking him for advice on life and relationships and how to write and how to get published as a writer. And this book actually contains the 10 letters that Rainer wrote back to the young man. And it's not about, money and, exercise or anything like that. But it's self-help in a different way. It gives them some great advice on being more mindful, open with relationships, talks about loneliness, solitude, and it's something over the last many years that pop culture has used as a bit of a book to guide them. Famous people like Marilyn Monroe, Jane Fonda, Dustin Hoffman, Lady Gaga even has a bit of the book tattooed on her arm. So it's a bit of a famous book and inspirational, so I figure I would start off with something very unique and self-help for 2022 for our followers.
Now, we, of course, have a clip of a reading from the book, and Dan Stevens is bringing us that today. And it is part of a letter that was written to the young poet back in 1903.
Things are not all as graspable and sayable as on the whole we are led to believe. Most events are unsayable, occur in a space that no word has ever penetrated. And most unsayable of all are works of art, mysterious existences whose life endures alongside ours, which passes away. Having begun with this preliminary remark, all I will go on to say is that your verses have no identity of their own, though they do have tacit and concealed hints of something personal. You are looking to the outside, and that, above all, you should not be doing now. Nobody can advise you and help you. Nobody. There is only one way. Go into yourself. And if from this turn inwards, from this submersion in your own world, there come verses, then it will not occur to you to ask anyone whether they are good verses. For in them you will see your beloved natural possessions, a piece and a voice of your life. A work of art is good if it has arisen out of necessity. The verdict on it lies in this nature of its origin. There is no other. For this reason, my dear sir, the only advice I have is this: to go into yourself and to examine the depths from which your life springs. At its source, you will find the answer to the question of whether you have to write. Accept this answer as it is, without seeking to interpret it. Perhaps it will turn out that you are called to be an artist. Then assume this fate and bear it, its burden and its greatness, without ever asking after the rewards that may come from outside. For he who creates must be a world of his own, and find everything within himself and in the natural world that he is elected to follow.
And that was an excerpt from the book Letters to a Young Poet, as read by Dan Stevens. And that is the book Wayne Button is reviewing with us this morning. Now, Wayne, the book was published back in 1929, as you mentioned, and you can certainly hear the difference in the language from that time compared to today. But what makes this collection such a classic?
I guess it's, as I mentioned, a lot of celebrities liked it. So it's not necessarily for everybody, but I do think anybody who is artistic, creative, into art, into music, this is probably more for them, because the book does talk a little bit about life advice, but mostly about creativity. And I think maybe that's why it's been such so famous in pop culture, and he also, leaves everything out there. At a time, it was 1929, and I guess, he never knew the letters would be published. He was very open and honest in his letters, something very rare for that time, to talk about that with creativity and relationships. So I think that's why people like it so much. It's so honest and open.
What advice did you take from the book? You've mentioned you read it as a self-help book. What stuck with you most?
Mostly, I'm not artistic in any way. The little clip that you just played, a little bit of that, it was in a 1929 artistic way of saying basically, don't worry about other people's opinions. Don't reach for other people to give you, accolades. It should come from within. You should be happy with what you're doing with your life. You should be happy with what you're creating and your job and so forth. And if you're going to look for that, from other people, you're never going to get it. So that's one thing. Mostly I found a lot in the book, it talked about solitude and loneliness, not about being lonely, but about being mindful and in the moment, how, we walk through the woods and we walk down the street and we don't take anything in. We're on our phones, we're busy. So that was some things back then that could translate to me today that I found very insightful and helpful in this self-help book.
Even though it is an older book, there's been some history behind it, only released in the last few years. Can you tell us the story about that?
Yeah, that's one of the most interesting things about the book is the history itself. As you said, it was published in 1929, but it wasn't until 2018. It was found in the Rilke family archives, the other letters from the young poet. So for years, this has been being published only with the 10 letters from Rainer Rilke. However, now they just recently put out a version where you can read the young poet's letters as well. And I found that really interesting. That's the version I actually bought because I wanted to see what was going on back and forth between the two. And there's even an 11th letter that has a bit of it can be transcribed and recovered, but a lot of it's lost. And so there is a new version in the book with the 11th letter as well, what they discovered. So that's what I liked about it. The book itself has some history as well.
Well, it sounds very intriguing. I'd never heard about it until you brought it up here today. So it's something I'm certainly going to look into and have a read. Thanks for telling us about it, Wayne.
No problem, Janice. That's what I'm here for, to bring some unique books to the people.
All right, you have a great day.
You too. Have a good one.
And that was our book reviewer, Wayne Button.
Hi, I'm Jackson. You're listening to Labrador Morning
on CBC Radio 1 and 93.9 FM in Cartwright.
Have a good day.
Well, snowmobiling is certainly a sport that many of us are enjoying this time of year. And to get a sense of how things are looking right now in Labrador West, we're joined by Eldon Wheaton of the White Wolf Snowmobile Club. Good morning.
Good morning.
So, Eldon, how is 2022 shaping up trail-wise in the region?
We're doing good. We don't have as much snow as we would like to have, but we're getting some trails open. We don't have them all open yet because the ice conditions and the lack of snow, but it's gradually moving along.
Now, I understand the groomer crossed Little Wallbush yesterday.
Yes, it did. Yeah, that's the first time we had better than 18 inches on Little Wallbush, and that's what we require for our groomers to cross any of the ice. We have to have a minimum of 18 inches of hard ice.
And both groomers are expected to be out today?
Yes, one's already gone, and the other one is warming up now to leave.
Now, talking about Little Wallbush, I understand there's been a bit of a change to the trail there. Can you tell us about that?
On Little Wallbush? I'm not aware of it.
Well, I believe it was leaving Little Wallbush and going around the old co-op store?
Oh, that, yeah, that was, I'm sorry, my mind went on that because that was all settled. Well, what actually happened there in the town of Labrador City, there was a piece of land that we used to cross, town land, eh? And they, over the summer, they sold it to a local contractor and they built an office building onto it, so we had to shut that section down. But we had another route coming into the gas station from, the Carol Auto, that area, the other side of town. So we're coming in through there now rather than coming around the other way.
Now, you mentioned that not all trails are opened yet, but are the main ones opened, or how many do you have available?
No, we don't have the main ones open, really. We got the one around Smoky Mountain, what we call the Smoky Mountain Loop. We got that all open and groomed. We got to the border, to the Quebec border going to Fermont. That's open and groomed. And the loop going into, Mills Lake, and that is open and groomed. Back of Wallbush is going to be done today. It was open and groomed before, but we've had this wind and snow, so that'll be open today. And we opened what we call the Javelin Road section and groomed it. The rest going north to Ashwanabee hasn't been touched, and going south to Grand Ermine hasn't been touched.
Is there any changes or improvements in the works for 2022?
Well, we're hoping to do some trail enhancement, cleaning up some brush and things like that along our trails. That's the plan. But if this cold weather starts, it continues. I don't know how fast we'll get into it. To go outside now for any amount of time at 30. Well, yesterday morning when we got ready to go, it was 35 below, so it's not ideal conditions, but we still. It's good conditions once you get the trail groomed because you freeze good. But the actual doing it is hard on everything, especially people, right? People.
Absolutely. Now, I know every year, Eldon, you remind people to slow down on the trails, especially when the groomers are out. But can you remind listeners again why this is so important?
Well, the big thing, our speed limits on all of our trails is maximum 50. And there's reasons for that, of course, because of our trails winding through the backcountry. But the big thing is that groomer cannot, and I mean cannot, get out of your way if you come around the corner. It's impossible. So there's only one of two things that you can do, and that's go out through the woods. And we hope that you don't get armed going out through the woods. The other option, well, we all know what that is. If you can't avoid the groomer, it's going to be a catastrophe.
And we don't want that this year or any year.
Definitely not. We don't want it any year. But we've seen a lot of speed on the trails that we have done this year, and it's got to be brought down. And it's not what people normally say. Oh, that's the teenagers. It's everyone.
Well,
or all groups. I shouldn't say everyone. I should say all groups of people. There's some from all groups, right?
And there always is.
Yes, there always is. The 10%ers, I call them.
Eldon, really appreciate you giving us this update this morning. Thanks so much and have a great weekend.
Not a problem. We're doing excellent, really, in regards to the club. We've sold more passes this year than we did last year or the year before up to this point. So we're really moving. So I just thank everyone for joining in and helping us out and get it all done. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Eldon Wheaton is the president of the White Wolf Snowmobile Club. Now, the Grand River Snowmobile Club is still working on getting all of their trails opened and groomed, even with a couple operators out with COVID. Most of the trails in town are done, including Mud Lake Road, Echo Lake, South Branch, and Loppet trails have been done. Grand Lake and Welburn Bay are being done this weekend. And most trails are in fair to good condition, but another good snowfall is needed as well. So snow is what everyone is asking for.
For more CBC podcasts, go to cbc.ca/podcasts.